¿Qué tal? Buenas noches, gente. My name is Rodrigo García. I am the Artistic Director of Teatro, Visión and your co-host for tonight. Bienvenidos to La Hora del Mitote. And we thank you for joining us tonight. La Hora del Mitote se transmite por nuestra página de Facebook, en nuestro canal de YouTube, por Instagram Live y en Canal 30 de Create TV. We invite you to participate by sending us your questions and comments. And I would like to start off by acknowledging that we are guests here on the ancestral homeland of the Muwek-Maolloni people who continue to live and thrive in our community today. Me gustaría comenzar reconociendo que somos huéspedes aquí en las tierras ancestrales del pueblo Muwek-Maolloni que continúa viviendo y prosperando en nuestra comunidad local hoy. Y con eso paso los micrófonos a Jacob. Jacob?
Hola, hola. Hi, everybody. Good night. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jacob, and I'm the Community Engagement and Marketing Manager at Teatro Visión. And we have the pleasure tonight of speaking with poet and activist Yosimar Reyes. Yosimar, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to read... Yeah, I'm going to share a little bit about Yosimar for anybody who's tuning in who hasn't heard about him. But I'm sure that's few of you. Yosimar was born in Guerrero, Mexico, and raised right here in East San Jose. He's most famous here for his spoken word poetry, and he's toured across the U.S. as a performer and as a speaker. Most recently, you might have seen this in San Francisco, he premiered his autobiographical one-person show, Prieto, about his experience growing up queer in East San Jose. And this year, he's been breaking new boundaries all over the local art scene. He's become MACLA's first ever performing artist in residence. He's a creative ambassador of the city of San Jose. And as of this week, just announced a couple days ago, he's the very first undocumented poet to be named Santa Clara County Poet Laureate. Congratulations, Yosimar. Bienvenido.
Gracias, buenas noches. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, that was a lot of titles, but we're out here.
It is. How are you feeling with all of these honors and achievements in the last year?
You know what? I just feel happy. You know, I feel like I've been working so hard for so long, and it's so good to kind of get the recognition from where you're from, you know, because I was doing it all over, and then now it's like representing my city. So yeah, it's cute. It's a moment.
You're a great representation.
Yosimar. Es increíble ver lo mucho que has hecho desde que yo te conozco, que yo te conocí como a los 19 años cuando hiciste tu lanzamiento de tu primer libro, For Color Boys Who Speak Softly. Todavía recuerdo, y obviamente yo quedé fascinado con tu trabajo desde entonces, y las personas que vinieron a ver ese evento, obviamente estaban fascinadas con tu trabajo ya desde antes, y he visto cómo tu carrera ha avanzado. I've seen how your career has moved up, and you were here in East San Jose for a while, then you went to LA, and then you came back loaded with creativity and great things. So congratulations on all your accomplishments up until today.
Thank you. Gracias.
Not only are we here to congratulate Yosimar on his new appointment as Poet Laureate, but we're also here to share some exciting news together that we've been sitting on for a few months. Yosimar and Teatro Visión over the next 2 years are actually going to be joining forces. We are working on a new project. Through a series of workshops and interviews that Yosimar is going to lead over the coming months, we are creating a new play that's going to premiere in 2025. That's going to weave together resident stories in Mayfair and East San Jose with Yosimar's own experiences, with your own experiences growing up in that neighborhood. And Yosimar, I was hoping maybe you could tell us a little bit about where the idea for this project came from, and what you're thinking about, what's been percolating on in your mind.
Yeah, estoy muy emocionado. I think this is a big challenge. It's a huge kind of it's a big challenge, but it's also very exciting to know that I can, to work with Teatro Visión. Actually, like one of the first plays that I watched when I was in high school was a production by Teatro Visión. And so since then, I think I was just fascinated with the ability que cómo puedes contar una historia en el escenario. And I was like, oh, and at that time I was like, oh, I don't know if I can write a play, but and through mentorship and guidance, I was able to write my own show about growing up in East Side San Jose. But I think more than that, I think in the discourse around where we're at, immigrants, undocumented people, people who are working class, I was like, I'm always interested in figuring out what is the nuance of our experience. And so mi inspiración por mi escritura, la mayor de las veces son mis vecinos, son las personas con las que creí, son mi familia, personas como mi abuelita, mi mamá, mis tías, sus amigas. I just find those stories really fascinating. And so for me, I want to, through oral histories and through just listening, comadreando, and just like sharing food and all of that, just hear people out, see what their experiences are, qué historias me cuentan. Y through that, I think, get that richness of who we are to represent our city. And so I think this is a really amazing journey that we're about to embark on, and just excited to meet dynamic people with these dynamic stories and weave those together to make a cohesive kind of body of work que representa nuestra ciudad. Y mi mayor añoranza es que cuando la gente venga a ver el teatro, la obra que vamos a escribir, que se sientan un poco celebrated, que se sientan que hay gente que le importa cómo vives o cómo sobrevives. I just want them to feel heard. And so, yeah, that's my goal, my intention going with this project. So, yeah.
And I want to mention that when thinking about a new work for Teatro Visión, this is something, a big investment, and this is not something that we can do every year. It takes time to build the idea and to identify the resources and get the resources. And for a long time, I've been very interested in something that reflects more our community. And I didn't know exactly how to shape it, but Borderlands, our friends from Borderlands in Tucson, Arizona, they have been doing some similar work, elevating the stories from the neighborhood. And Jacob Lee, our former managing director and now board member, and I took a trip to Tucson to see their work. And we were fascinated and inspired by the work that they were doing. And so we came home and we said, this is what we want to do it. But it's not just about that. It's not just about collecting stories. It's about who does it and how you initiate that conversation. And also, once you start collecting the stories, how do you translate that in a way that is captivating? And that's where you come in. I mean, your style of writing, your storytelling, and how you weave humor in the stories that are, like with your heart in your hand. So, on behalf of Teatro Visión, I cannot be more excited and thankful for your availability de poder trabajar con nosotros y de querer trabajar con nosotros en un proceso que es un proceso largo, 1 año y medio que va a durar. Así que muchísimas gracias. Y a mí me gustaría preguntarte, y de alguna manera ya lo mencioné, pero ¿de dónde viene el estilo tan original de Yosimar al escribir historias o al coleccionar estas historias?
Para mí siempre se me hizo, yo empecé a escribir cuando tenía 16 años. Yo me crié en the Colmar apartments, entre la Story and la Capitol. So I grew up in those apartment complexes. I read a lot of books. I was a nerd. Y se me hacía muy interesante porque yo oía muchas historias de las personas que mi abuelita daba de comer. So she used to feed day laborers, les daba de comer a los señores que trabajaban o que iban al Home Depot a esperar por su trabajo. Y oía muchas anécdotas, muchas historias que contaban y a veces historias tristes, como es muy difícil como personas inmigrantes llegar a este país, como personas indocumentadas, conseguir trabajo, el maltrato que afrontamos a veces en los trabajos. Y I don't know, pero I always find it inspiring that despite, a pesar de todo lo que enfrentamos, todavía nos levantábamos al siguiente día y vamos a trabajar otra vez. We still wake up the next day and still go to work. And I just found that, I was like, what is that? Porque no, ¿qué es eso? ¿Es esperanza? ¿Qué es esa energía que tenemos que tener para saber que pues es algo muy difícil que estamos pasando y todavía tenemos que seguir adelante? And so I was like, I'm trying to capture that. And so I feel like my sensibility in my writing is capturing that little bit of hope, esperanza del inmigrante. Es lo que quiero capturar en las historias. And I think una cosa que me acuerdo mucho es que nosotros, we were basically working class, below working class. I mean, I think no latino or immigrant siempre va a decir soy pobre. Nunca vamos a decir que soy pobre. ¿Verdad? Mi abuela nunca usó la palabra pobre para describir nuestra situación, porque a pesar que somos pobres, somos ricos en esperanza, right? Cosas así. And so for me, I was like, no, we have to say that we're poor, porque la verdad que sí, fuimos muy pobres como en ese país. Pero what I wanted to capture in my writing is dignity. ¿Cómo puede ser que somos de esta manera, que estamos en las condiciones, pero todavía hacemos un gran orgullo en dignidad en nuestro trabajo? So I think that's my sensibility. Es lo que quiero capturar. Especialmente como persona indocumentada, as an undocumented person, it's very easy to use it as a trope or to talk to people about how hard my life is. When I'm not interested in that, I'm more interested on the way we're thriving. Y es lo que quiero capturar en esta, que a pesar de que vivimos esas historias y esas anécdotas que son un poco pesadas, todavía tenemos un poder de humano de todavía seguir adelante. So, mi esperanza es eso. My hope is that this writing is a bit of a push or a reminder for the people that are, already like, oh, I want to give up. And they see the play or a monologue or something in the play and digan, no estoy solo. That's all. Like, I just want you to feel that you're not alone, that there's people here that care for you and are invested in you thriving. So, yeah.
That's a beautiful vision for the show. And thinking back to your performance of Prieto, what you say about dignity and joy and power, like those feel like they se destacaron en esa obra. Like, for as much as I cried, I laughed, and I had the privilege of attending a performance where you brought your mother or your grandmother on stage, and it was just such a beautiful moment of joy and of seeing kind of where your journey has taken you, and we're excited to be a part of that journey. I want to talk a little bit more about this project. At Teatro, one of our big mission for any listeners that aren't familiar is that we want to inspire audiences through the power of theater to build a better world, to create a better world. We believe that theater has the potential to do that. And we think that this new work project, working with you, Yosimar, and what you've talked about in terms of like building a place where community members can see themselves on stage, can see themselves celebrated, that will take a step towards building that change. And we have some ideas about how this project can help inspire a sense of civic engagement in our community. We have some ideas for some projects. I know you're going to do a series of workshops with community members. Can you talk a little bit about what people might expect in those workshops and how you see kind of that participatory way of making art, how that links art and activism and all of those awesome things?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Okay, I usually do writing workshops in English, and I work with a lot of students, college students, and it's amazing because a lot of times la gente que viene al writing workshop, they're like, oh, I don't write, yo no escribo, I don't know anything. And then we just get it, like, I give them a 10-minute free write, and they're like, bro, like, dynamic, like, amazing, like, oh my God, imagine what you can do if you te sientas. So I got the idea too for writing workshops. Like, imagine if I did a writing workshop con mi abuela. Si le doy una clase de escritura a mi abuela, cómo contar su historia. Mi abuela cuenta historias todo el tiempo, pero las historias que me cuenta todo el tiempo son tragedia, right? So I was like, no, I'm interested. I love the tragedy. I love me a good novela moment. Pero now I want to do prompts, right? Quiero hacer diferentes cosas que la gente ponga a reflexionar. ¿Cuál es el momento de que te sentiste muy orgulloso de ti? ¿Cuál es el momento en que dijiste yo gané o yo lo hice? O sea, cambiar la conversación en esos momentos. And so I think for me, I'm very excited to do it in Spanish. Porque muchos de mis trabajos de mis vecinos, y los escribo en Spanglish, but my vecinos are like, you need to translate because we don't know what you're saying. So estoy muy emocionado de entrar en este mundo del español y usarlo un poco más para hacer esas historias. So, las clases de escrituras que vamos a dar, we're teaming up with non-profit organizations, vamos a trabajar con organizaciones que ya tienen como personas que van allí y una sesión de simplemente si tienes algo que quieres desahogar o quieres escribir o quieres desarrollar, abrir ese espacio. Y mi modo de escribir, to do these, hopefully it's a lot of laughter, fun, algo divertido. No es una clase donde estás sentado and I have to go, more fun, comadreando. I feel like that's a good word. I like that word, comadreando, like, just a bunch of girls, señoras, señores, juntándose y a ver qué sale. So, I'm really excited. Estoy muy emocionado para eso.
Así que ya saben, gente, en cuanto hagamos el anuncio para los talleres de Yosimar, no pierdan esta oportunidad única, porque Yosimar, además de ser muy talentoso, y por ser talentoso, está súper ocupado. Y en este caso tenemos la gran oportunidad de que comparta su talento con nosotros a través de estos workshops. Así que ya saben, más detalles van a venir y las esperamos ver en los talleres con Yosimar.
I want to take a moment to thank everybody who's just connected to La Hora del Mitote. We invite you to participate by sending us your questions and comments. Hi, Marisa. It's great to have you tuning in. Hola, Esperanza. Muchas gracias a las personas que se acaban de conectar esta noche a la Hora del Mitote. Los invitamos a participar en esta plática mandándonos sus preguntas y sus comentarios que con gusto leeremos esta noche. Gracias. Thank you for tuning in. Now, Yosimar, just because you have so many projects this year and in the coming years, I wanted to ask a little bit about how you see your projects at Macla as the creative ambassador, as poet laureate here at Teatro, overlapping with one another? Do they have commonalities, common threads that you're weaving through? What's the picture of the next couple of years looking like for you?
Yeah, I think it all ties in. I think I am blessed to know that my work is how I carry myself in the communities that I represent. Yeah, I think siempre I've always led with that. I always led. Yes, it's about me. Yes, yo escribo los poemas. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily, I'd rather have the attention on the people that inspire me. Yes, yo los puedo escribir, but it's not necessarily about me. It's about the community that I represent. And so for me, I've always taken to honor that yo sé de dónde vengo, yo sé cuánto he luchado to get where I'm at, and I know that I want to make sure that I bring to light these stories. And so I think for me, that's my focus within my projects. I want to center the people who are facing the brunt of all these social issues, right? I want to center the people, and I want to take care of the community that very seldomly people consider when voting, when passing laws, Quiero poner a frente que la comunidad que son los que somos más afectados por pólizas y por cosas así. So I think that's just my method of how I'm focusing. Does this project align with my values? Does this project do that? And so I think this is it. I think this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to write my writings around a community. So we were talking about maybe this is like a community memoir. Maybe is this, you know, las anécdotas de una vecindad. So I think so. And also I want to bring those audiences in. I think muchas veces we think that poetry is just one thing, and we forget that people like my neighbors have a lot of poems in them, but we just need to allow them the space para escribirlo. So estoy muy emocionado en eso. And you know what? I don't know, se me felicita sentarme con alguien y me cuenta unas cosas tan deep that I'm like, oh, I'm not a therapist, but I appreciate you telling me this. So I think it all aligns, and I think I just want to bring those people into these spaces. So hopefully through this play, la gente conoce recursos de nuestra ciudad, and I've always been like that. For mis vecinos, I'm like, there's so many organizations that are helping you. You just need to tap in, and so I think that's the strategy with us, to tap into these organizations who are doing amazing work here in Santa Clara County, here in San Jose. They're already servicing our communities and just opening up. Porque lo que hace muy difícil en nuestra comunidad es que a veces nos preguntamos, nos da vergüenza, or we're just like demasiado orgullosos de no, like, hey, no, pero hopefully that's our strategy para ser un poco conectados más a la ciudad. So, yeah.
Me gustaría resaltar acerca del proyecto en base a lo que acabas de mencionar, de que una de las cosas cautivantes acerca de este proyecto es el enlace que crea con la comunidad, que no siempre es vista a través del teatro y en el teatro. Y esto es bien importante. Esas historias de la mesa en un departamento, de una recámara con la familia alrededor, que no han dejado ese lugar, y ahora verlas amplificadas y pensar en ellos y con ellos, yo creo que es muy importante y muy valioso. Desde la primera vez que tuvimos la conversación acerca de lo que podía ser el proyecto, a mí me fascinó muchísimo eso que tú mencionaste, que era importante para ti, el que pudieran estas historias emanar de esta comunidad, pero no quedarse ahí, porque también hay como cierto morbo, ¿no? Como sacar una historia para presentárselo a alguien más, pero en este caso es elevar las historias, amplificarlas para volverlas a compartir con los mismos participantes. Yo creo que eso es bastante importante.
Definitivamente. Rodrigo, tú has hablado mucho de cómo el teatro se conecta a esta idea del civic engagement y cómo este proceso y este proyecto nos da oportunidades de conectar la comunidad a sus representantes, a estas organizaciones de las que habla Yosimar. ¿Nos puedes contar un poco más de Visión, de cómo van a wheel of our community, cómo se van a conectar a este proyecto?
Sí, claro que sí. En el momento en que, usando un poco los principios de teatro participativo y educación popular, en el momento en que tomamos a una persona y empezamos a indagar y a hacerles saber que el poder que tienen existe en ellos y es el poder de sus historias, porque nadie les ha dicho que importan, porque estamos acostumbrados a que nos han dicho a callarnos, esto no es importante. Entonces, en el momento en que elevamos estas historias, se crea un empoderamiento, espero, que queremos usar para precisamente romper estas barreras, ¿no? Lo que mencionaba Yosimar. Some people feel like I cannot ever talk to a city official or a county supervisor, someone in power, because the perception that we have growing up is that those in power are not to be reached. And so with this project, the idea is that we would break or help break those barriers so folks can understand that they have the power to change their environment, that they have the power to go and talk to the mayor of San Jose or a supervisor. And so through that, letting them know that the power is within them. They don't need to look the power outside. It exists within them. But they need to believe it, and that's a process. And once they believe it, then they can exercise it, because that's another thing, right? Like, it's not only about knowing that you have the power, it's knowing how you can apply the power and moving into using your power to make a change. So hope that this project serves as a conduit for people to realize their power that they have and to that step. And for that, we want to invite people in power to also come down and meet with folks. And hopefully we can meet in the middle and both realize those who feel that do not have power exercise their power, and those who are in positions of power come down, not look down, but come down and be at the same level, eat at the same table as the community.
Absolutely. I think one of the ways that this project does that so effectively is what we've talked about in terms of like the geographical specificity. It's about this neighborhood that Teatro Visión has been a part of for decades. And it's created by you, Yosimar, as somebody who grew up in that community. I think that has so much power of people seeing themselves on stage, seeing their own neighborhood represented. I think it's something that not enough of us get to see, and it's a beautiful part of this project. To shift directions just a little bit, Yosimar, this new work project isn't the first time you've worked with us at Teatro. We had the opportunity to partner with you a little earlier in your career on our premiere of La Muerte Baila back in 2017, where you led this project to create a series of poems where you also used community input. You created a series of poems about remembrance, and actually that project inspired a project that we did this past year with a group of young poets in San Jose. I want to ask a little bit about what was your process for collecting community responses, for transforming those into poems. And just to start us off, I have a photo, I think, from the workshops that you conducted back then. So just a little throwback.
Oh, danger. Oh my God, I look so different. Yeah, I think the process of that. I think I love going. It's interesting because I tell people I'm a poet, right? But it took me so long for me to identify as a poet, or for me to even think that my writing was any good. Like, I feel like I wasn't really self-appointing myself, like, oh, it's something that I do. But what I found very interesting in the process of all collecting these poems and these stories is that we carry so much. We're all experiencing, todos estamos pasando por cosas, right? We're experiencing the same things, but it's very hard sometimes to be vulnerable. And so I think by opening up a space in which you say, hey, I'm going to start, yo voy a empezar, and I'm going to tell you something really, really deep. And you don't have to tell me anything, but if you want to, you can feel. Luego empiezas tú, and then they hesitate, and then another one opens, and then another one opens, and then pretty soon the open space. So I think like that. I love being able to create a space where you're slowly trusting that other people are going to take care of you, and allowing yourself to fall, allowing yourself to cry, allowing yourself to like, hey, I'm feeling these emotions. And so I think the process of that has been that, especially with the play. I think La Muerte Baila is very interesting because it's una obra de teatro that focuses on death and focuses on longing. It focuses on passing, but it also celebrates. So it's like a mix of all these things. And so I think what was beautiful about that is that, there's so many people that are missing somebody. There's so many people that are grieving. There's so many people that are processing, or like thinking of somebody all the time. And so I think the process of that was really beautiful, in which we were able to capture all these different stages of collective memory, all these different stages of collective emotion. And so, yeah, we came up with those pieces. And honestly, it was people would write them, and it was like, cutting the lines and putting them together and weaving it. So it was like creating a tapestry. So I think that was really beautiful and really cool that I was able to. It was people's words, but it was just like a collective of like, oh, I can piece it like a puzzle and put it together. So yeah, it was really, it was a really cool experience to do that. But more than anything, watching people allow themselves to open up, or people that have never written a poem be like, oh, I feel safe, I can do this. So that was cool.
Y quiero mencionar que para ese proyecto recibimos más de 400 contribuciones de la comunidad, que fue maravilloso, y obviamente gracias al talento de Yosimar, esos pedacitos que tú mencionas se convirtieron en poemas bellísimos con tu sello, because when you hear those poems, they're deep, but at the same time they keep a levity that allows us to talk about, when I die, this is how we want to be remembered, without making it suffer, but still keeping it deep and strong. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Thank you.
And if you're interested in reading those poems, they're still available on our website. You could read Yosimar's work, teatrovisión.org. I think if you go to Collective Poetry Project on the website, they're still there. You can download the whole booklet. On to your more recent project of Prieto, I wanted to ask a little, Yosimar, about what it was like to transfer kind of all this experience you had as a spoken word poet, as a writer of poetry, to creating something for the stage, something that was more narrative, a piece of theater. What was that like shift like, and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, it was interesting. Usually when I present, when I perform, I read the poem and then I talk about the poem. And I realized what I was actually doing was all that talk was a monologue. So I was like, oh, let me just tell you the story about the behind why I wrote this poem and just do a monologue. And so I think it started as that. It started actually, the play started, the poems were turning into short stories. So I was like, I want to do a short story collection. I want to do stories about my neighborhood, about where I grew up, like memorias que tenía when I was growing up, right? And so I started writing these stories. And then I was like, actually, I can weave them together and do a performance. And so I think that's what morphed. But at the heart of it, honestly, I wrote my play because I was kind of frustrated. I'm undocumented, I have DACA. And I was kind of frustrated because every time I would do an interview or people would do a story about me, it was just about how sad my life was and how I came from nothing, basically, like this, oh, yo vengo de nada, right? And when I was growing up in the 90s in my apartment complex, I realized my neighbors were super smart. They navigated this country. They hacían movidas, like they were money entrepreneurs, like tenían 3 businesses, vendía soda, vendía esto, todo, So I was like, it's very, I don't come from nothing. I come from people who are geniuses. I come from entrepreneurs. I come from people that left their families behind, pero son movidos. I come from that. I come from hustle. I come from, we got to make it, right? Voy a encontrar la renta. In 2 days, te encuentro para la renta. Like that's what I come from. And so I was like, they're not capturing it. No están capturando lo que yo quiero. And so I was like, let me tell this story and let me tell it in a funny way. Also, like it was so sad all the time. So I was like, I want to use humor. I want to laugh. I want to quiero que mi mamá venga y se ría. I was like, oh, I remember that, And so I think those are the motifs that I used in writing at. And honestly, it was centering on documented people. I was like, I'm not interested in convincing people to like me. I'm not interested in convincing people to vote. I'm not interested in convincing people to, I'm not interested. I'm interested in other undocumented people to come to my show, to laugh, to be like, this is so funny. I can laugh at my own pain, but also experience it. And so I center that. And gracias a Dios me salió. It's okay. It's good. I feel like I still want to edit it, but I feel like it's powerful. And I think that's what my intention now is that muchas de las veces people use our stories to convince other people about who we are. And I feel like, we've been through so much that sometimes you just want to party with the people that know that you made it and just open it up. Of course, one thing about one thing that I've learned about my family is that even if you show up uninvited, you will still get a plate of food, right? We don't measure like así no hacemos las fiestas. You make for everybody. You make it happen. So I think that's the kind of atmosphere that I want to have for this. It's a party, a celebration. We welcome you if you want to be welcome, but we're also not centering you not knowing about our experiences. We're centering ourselves and celebrating that. So that's my intention. That's my energy now, especially with this election and what's coming up. I'm like, I don't have the energy for folks that don't want to, who are willfully ignorant. Not good.
Yosimar, a little bit of the script, but I'm interested. I mean, who doesn't know Yosimar? Who doesn't love reading your posts? I mean, you can just, for anybody who is not following him, follow Yosimar and see how much love you receive from people who know your work, your story. Tell me about the other folks, the ones that they have come to question your existence, your work. How do you handle that? And how do you handle, just the climate that we live in, and what has helped you to continue seeing that celebration aspect that you're mentioning?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's very difficult. I think it's hard with policies y todo. Pero, I mean, I'm grounded. I think I'm very grounded in my family. Thankfully, mi abuelita is somebody that I always look to. Sometimes I'm stressed. I ask her, and, she might not have the best advice, but at least she feels like home. She feels like, oh, it matters. And also, honestly, my work, I'm living what I'm writing. So it's not like I'm looking back. I'm actually living this moment. Pero I think I see the shift in my family. I see how impactful, how my work has legit shifted the course of our trajectory of where we came from, right? We came from poverty, from struggling. We're not doing that no more. It's shifting. And then mi abuela también, she's 89. I tell her all the time, like, I want you to find your happiness. You can rest. Ya puedes descansar, no tienes que trabajar. You can just focus on what makes you happy. And so I think that breaking that curse, that our legacy is going to be poverty, that our legacy is going to be tragedy. And I think going inward, I think para mí es más importante finding my peace, finding out what I am, who I am, where I'm going. And the other stuff, I know it doesn't belong to me. The people that write xenophobic things to me, I know they're not mad at me. You can't personally be mad at me because you don't know me. You're writing of an idea of what I am. You're writing an idea of what I represent, but it's not me. I think but it's just you gotta go to therapy for that. I start my shows all the time. I'm doing this play or this production. I'm not interested in convincing you to like immigrants. If you're someone that doesn't like immigrants, who is xenophobic, you need to take that with a clinician, with an expert, go to therapy, figure it out, because this play's not going to do that, So I think I'm good at grounding myself, and it works that I'm around a good community of people that understand that. So yeah, and I block them.
Abrazos fuertes para tu abuelita.
Thank you.
Y para tu familia.
Speaking of that community that surrounds you, I want to thank everybody who's joined us tonight. La Hora del Mitote is our online speaker series. Please feel free to keep sending us your comments and questions. Gracias a todos quienes se han reunidos con nosotros esta noche. Por favor, mándenos sus preguntas, sus comentarios. Hola, Fernando, nuestro amigo. Y Ricardo dice que se pone bueno el mitote. Thank you for tuning in.
Mitote is a very Mexican word, no? Because a lot of people, is it? Or cheese? Yeah, it's very, very specific. Because sicón too. I was like, oh, soy yo sicón. I was like, oh, what does that mean? I'm like, it's a big mouth.
Y aparte quiero compartir que Este año Teatro Visión celebra su 40 aniversario, 40 años de existir. Y es un orgullo tenerte como parte de esta celebración.
Y como parte de nuestra celebración de 40 años, vamos a tener 40 eventos para celebrar esos 40 años. Y este es nuestro segundo evento. Gracias a todos por ser parte de nuestro programa del año. Yosimar, we're in a period right now in the arts industry where it feels like we're creating this work with community is really trendy. It feels like every grant organization wants people to go out and artists to go out in the community in ways that we haven't before. Organizations are all of a sudden like scrambling to create content that connects with community in different ways. And some people do it really responsibly. Some people have done it for years, like companies like Teatro, Visión, and it's rooted in the work that people do. But what do you think is important for artists to be keeping in mind when we're seeking to bring community members, community histories into our work? What are the things that you keep in mind what are your responsibilities as an artist in doing that kind of thing?
I think the biggest thing is knowing that anybody, anytime you go to a community, yes, you might see strife, you might see struggle, you might be like, triste. And I think one of the biggest things for me is how do I capture dignity? How do I capture orgullo? Porque I think ha pasado en el pasado, you know, I have that experience, right? Where people came to my house. I opened up my house. You filmed my house. You filmed how I live, and I'm showing you. And then I see how you shot it and you edit it, and then I'm like, that's embarrassing. I don't want people to view me like that. And so I think being cognizant of being aware of that. Que muchas de las veces, no matter what you see, there's still a certain level of human dignity that we all encompass. So I think that is very important to me, especially growing up how I grew up. And so I think that's my approach, asking people, how do you want to feel represented? What do you feel is important to you? What is something that, if you want to be remembered, like, what do you want people to remember? Like, esas cosas son muy importantes. And also building trust, just knowing that you're not there to extract. I didn't come here to take from you. Like, I'm actually, it's an interaction. I can offer you this, you know, like those kind of things to build trust. So those are important to me. I think the last thing I want is to misrepresent somebody or to like have somebody feel like exploited, because it's a yucky feeling. So I think being very mindful of that. And the fact is that I know my neighborhood. This is where I grew up. I still have relationships with my vecinos. They help me out so much, you know, and so it's a relationship more than this transaction. And so I think my approach to the work is that. And honestly, I've seen some of those projects of people coming from writing about communities that they don't encompass, and I don't know, it's not my approach. I don't like it. And so I think for me, my approach has always been, I'm really excited. I feel like I don't know how many undocumented people get to write about their undocumented neighbors and celebrate them in this way. So I think that experience gets me an in that unless you didn't grow up like this, then you probably wouldn't see it. So yeah.
Thank you for saying that. And you're getting some kudos in the chat from Rita.
Thank you.
For your own brilliance. You're making a difference. Thank you, Yosimar. Do you have any advice for young poets and young performers who want to work like you do, whether it's bringing community members into their work or sharing their stories and digging into their own experiences and finding that you find this beautiful complexity of humor and reality that we've talked about? What kind of advice do you give young poets?
You know what's beautiful right now is that I was just reading a report that in music, Spanish is the most consumed language globally right now, because we're having like this renaissance of Espanol, which is really amazing. And so for me, I think one of the biggest things, I do a writing workshop, and one of the writing workshops is like, name 5 things that you grew up embarrassed by growing up. Most people say Spanish. And so we shift that, and then I was like, name 5 things that you feel are your cultural powers. And so I think that shift has kind of happened. And I think the biggest thing for me, for young people, is all those things that you grew up embarrassed by are actually your biggest assets and are actually the things that are connect you to the rest of the world. And so I think I start off with this sense of ¿cuáles son las cosas que te dan vergüenza? What are the things that you're embarrassed by? And you're gonna realize that most people are connected through that. And my biggest thing is like own it, own those stories, own those vergüenzas, own them, because if you don't, those are what give you flavor. All those tragedies will give you flavor, because if you don't own them, someone else is more than willing to make them up for you and take them away from you and benefit and bank off of those. And so I think for me, the biggest thing is owning your truth, owning your stories, and do the work to not be embarrassed by it. Say, yes, I grew up like this. Yes, I grew up like that. Yes, this is my family. Yes, this, owning it. And then the other thing, don't lose sight. I think it's very easy for us to assimilate into a dominant culture. It's very easy for us to code switch and be a part of whatever culture is promoted. But I think that's the biggest thing. And yeah, keeping relationships with people. I think I've always made sure. I think I'm grateful. Mi abuela has always been made, she's my aunt because they son todas sus comadres. And so I've always made sure to be respectful and like help people out. And so, and I think that, one of the biggest things that people ask me all the time, oh, what can I do for undocumented people? People think that being an activist is a huge gesture, that you have to go to protest. No, it's simple. Cosas simples, translating a document, making a phone call, helping the person fill out a form, like cosas simples. I think you'd have no idea how, or passing a flyer. Hey, I know you're going through this experience. This flyer has these resources. Maybe you can benefit from it. Those simple things are what changes the course of people's lives. And so, I think those things, just being self-aware of the needs, will help you be part of that. Be a better neighbor. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I think a lot of what you're talking about in terms of what activism means is about thinking in terms of mutual aid and just helping people in basic ways, like not doing activism just for the sake of like being seen doing activism, but like how can we support each other with the resources that we have, that we bring to the table. And I think just like to extrapolate further, that's what art's all about, is like supporting each other with our artistic powers and the stories that we bring. That's beautiful. Just to keep shouting out the folks in the chat, Una Esperanza, and this beautiful comment from Rita again. Mm-hmm. Gracias. We're nearing the end of La Hora del Mitote tonight. And so I wanted to, if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Si tienen preguntas, por favor, pregúntenos y les respondemos. In these last moments, I want to call out to everybody watching. Do you want to share your stories of living and working in East San Jose? Do you want to participate in the development of this new work project? Has hearing Yosimar's stories and about his process inspired you? There's so many ways that we're going to have to participate. Yosimar's going to be conducting some interviews in the next few months. And if you feel you have a story you want to share, you have thoughts, you have memories of East San Jose or San Jose in general, reach out. You can reach us at teatro@teatrovision.org. You can, if you're connected to some nonprofit organizations, look out for some information about how to attend Yosimar's poetry workshops. We're going to have several of those over the rest of the spring and maybe into the summer. And then if you're interested, join us for a stage reading of the play in progress. Yosimar will have a stage reading towards the end of 2024. Tune in, keep in touch. It's going to be a really exciting performance. Yosimar, as one last question, I wanted to ask first, there might be some audience members out there listening who aren't sure if their story is worth telling or if their memories would be worthwhile for some interviews. What would you say to those people who aren't sure about participating?
No, I feel like give it a shot. Like, let's try it. I don't know. I feel like I'm good at connecting with people, and you know, a ver qué sacamos. I think just trust it. I feel like if you feel a calling to say, hey, I want to participate in this, or if you feel like a little something like, oh, it'd be cool if I can be part of it. Oh, I would like to contribute. I said, trust it, and pull up. Hey, algo te está diciendo. Estoy como the last call that the pastor does at the church. If you feel compelled by the Spirit to come to the front and speak, do it. I think si se siente tocado para venir a decir eso, do it. I trust it. I think trust that feeling. And if anything, you'll learn something new. You'll learn a new ability. You'll connect with different people. I think that's the project is the story, but beyond that, it's the connection, the community. It's that's the bigger aspect of it, right? And so if you feel compelled, I said trust it and pull up.
Thank you, Yosimar. We do have one last question from Rita. Now that you're a poet laureate, now that was announced, how is your life going to change? How do you see it changing?
I hope more opportunities. I think more, if anything, more opportunities to represent represent my community across the county, and so bringing more visibility to the issues that are impacting my community. And so I hope that, I think that is more than anything, using this position to leverage that. And I feel like creating more dope work. I think this is going to be dope with Teatro Visión, creating a really solid piece of work that represents us.
Absolutely. I think we can expect that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yosimar, do you have any plans of bringing back Prito at some point? You had a run here in San Jose after San Francisco, pero vamos, o sea, sería genial que las personas tuvieran la oportunidad de verla, quienes no la vieron y quienes la vieron que la vuelvan a disfrutar.
Sí, ahorita estamos figuring out. I want to do an LA premiere and then figuring out. I would love to translate it in español. A ver cómo me sale en español. Fully in español for my vecinos to see it. But I think we're gonna. I want to do some edits and stuff, and then hopefully do another presentation for the people that didn't get to catch it in San Jose, which was amazing. We sold out 6 nights, so that was so cool. Like, oh, people are so hungry for this. So. It's primeramente Dios, si traemos la obra otra vez and do it, you know, or maybe like a one-night special or algo así. So yeah, I'm excited.
That's so exciting. Keep us in the loop.
¿Cómo podrían saber las personas más acerca de tu trabajo y de los proyectos que tienes en mente?
Yeah, I relaunched my website. We have a new look, new year, new me. So my website is fresh for you. So you can go to yosimar.com, yosimar.com. You'll find videos, poetry, pictures. And you can shoot me an email through there to connect with me. So yeah, yosimar.com.
And you can follow Yosimar on Instagram as well, Yosi Rey.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Yosimar, for joining us. Thank you, Rodrigo, for being my co-host. We've reached the end of La Hora del Mitote tonight. Thank you, everybody who's joined us. La Hora del Mitote is our online speaker series. You can watch previous iterations. We had a really wonderful conversation a couple weeks ago with the Teatro Visión team. You can check those out on our YouTube channel, on Facebook, and on our website. And join us for the next La Hora del Mitote. Check out our social media pages and sign up for our newsletter on our website to hear more. We look forward to seeing you at the next episode here on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Create TV Channel 30. We'll see you next time. Nos vemos. Muchas gracias.